In this episode, we talk to Jim Johnson, the Star Trek product line manager for Modiphius Entertainment. This is STA Engage. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with some basic introductions. I am your host, Dr. RPG Jeff Harvey. I am not a real doctor, although I do have medical training, and I do play one in Star Trek Adventures, because I'm a nerd. But if they were to hand out advanced degrees for being a nerd, or for playing games for pretty much your entire life in one's basement, I would definitely have earned one by now. This show is STA Engage, where we talk about the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, my Modiphius Entertainment. So I guess what can you expect from this show? Well, in association with the folks over at continuingmissionsta.com, we are going to highlight products from Star Trek Adventures, the product line of the RPG. We're going to have interviews with Modiphius staff like we are today with Jim Johnson. We're also going to talk with Star Trek Adventures community members, leaders of the community, and discuss ways for you to improve your game, get the most out of your character, better story ideas, general Star Trek news. I mean, you name it. If it's Star Trek or gaming related, Star Trek gaming related, we're going to cover it probably. All of this is in an effort to help fans of Star Trek and of role-playing engage with the Star Trek franchise better. This show is brought to you by the letter Q, the number 1, and the support of people like you. So like, subscribe, share, support us on Patreon. You can find out more about the folks that sponsor us and help put the show together, like our production team at Studio Tembo, the folks over at Continuing Mission, and our sponsor for Season 1, Adventure Inc. You can find all of this and more in the links below. Check out the doobly-doo. So, with all of that out of the way, I guess the big question that everybody has in mind, and really the reason you're probably here, is what is STA and why should I care? Well, for that, I think it's best if we talk to one of the creative voices behind the Star Trek Adventures product line manager, Jim Johnson. Hello, Jim. How's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure thing. My name is Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager for Star Trek Adventures, which is published by Modiphius Entertainment, a British game company. I've been working on the line for just over 4 years now. I started off as a writer on the core book and rapidly got involved in everything, pretty much. Got promoted to project manager last year and been working hard on it ever since.
Yeah, you'll see his name in a lot of the books. Just check it out. It's right there in the front pages.
Yeah, almost all of them, I think.
Yeah. First, I guess let's give people a little context and what is a line manager for an RPG? What do you actually do?
So I can't speak to what a line manager would do at different companies. I can tell you what they do at Modiphius, right? Because every game company is a little bit different. Every book has different titles and everything that's going on. But for Modiphius, the project manager is in charge of the overall line. So coming up with concepts for products, figuring out the budgets for those products, marshaling the forces to make those products into manuscripts. So it's finding writers and arranging editors and proofreaders and coordinating with all the different teams at Modiphius, whether it's the art director or the concept and design people who do the actual layout. Honestly, it's a lot of cat herding. I guess since it's Star Trek, it's triple herding. It's endless amounts of email, day after day after day. But it's also a huge amount of creative fun because it's figuring out like what cool game products are we going to come up with, and then figuring out how to make it happen. So it's a combination of triple herding and project management, really. So there's a lot of moving parts involved in it.
Yeah. So were you a Star Trek fan first or an RPG fan first?
Star Trek fan first. Yeah, I remember when I was like 5 or 6 watching Star Trek reruns on a little teeny tiny 4-inch black and white television back in the 70s. When the original series was when I could catch a rebroadcast episode it's classic, right? I had the tinfoil on the aerial trying to find the right connection to make it work, you know.
The knob that pops out to turn it on.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And so yeah, I was a original series fan way before RPGs were ever a thing. I mean, obviously when Dungeons and Dragons came out, I got into that, and it wasn't until later that I figured out how to mesh the two together. But yeah, lifelong Star Trek fan.
Nice. So what is Star Trek Adventures, and why really should people pay attention to this game as opposed to others?
Yeah, so Star Trek Adventures is the current iteration of a Star Trek RPG, tabletop RPG. So if you played Dungeons and Dragons, if you played Vampire the Masquerade, if you've played any number of other tabletop RPGs out there, you're familiar with the concept where you're getting together with a group of people at a table, whether it's physical or virtual at this point, right? Because a lot of people are playing virtual now.
Yeah, I'm playing virtual
You create
myself.
characters. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do too. So you create characters and you go through a Star Trek story or adventure or situation or whatever you're doing. And Star Trek Adventures just happens to be the most recent version. There have been at least 4 or 5 different versions of a Star Trek RPG prior to this one over the years. And the most recent one was published by a company called Decipher, and that was back in 2002, 2003, something like that.
Right.
So it's been, and Star Trek Adventures came out in 2017. So there was a 14-year gap where Star Trek fans were just bereft of any new RPG that really came out, right? Any official RPG that came out.
Right.
And Modiphius took the opportunity to take the license, or to get the license, and have been charging full speed since we got it.
Right. Some of us were duct taping our lug books back together, our Last Unicorn Games books back together, so we could keep using them. So, how does this version of Star Trek, the RPG, differ from the previous versions, like the Last Unicorn Games or Decipher, or the other versions that we talked about? Like I know GURPS has had a version, and Prime Directives and FASA, I think, had a version. How does this one differ from those?
So having played all of them, from FASA to Lug to Decipher to this one, I think what Star Trek Adventures does differently than the other ones is it really plays at the conceit that you're playing characters like on a Star Trek television show, doing adventures kind of in the format of a television show, right? Like, so you kind of you're working through the plot, but the idea is that the game mechanics support you going from scene to scene to scene, building momentum through that scene, and then if you still have momentum at the end of the scene, you lose a point because you don't have that same level of momentum.
Sure.
But it's really focused on drama and just storytelling, and especially more than anything else, is really about the characters, right? One of the key components of the game are your characters' values, and those values can be tested at different points in an episode depending on how things are going. And your character can actually change, right? Your values can change and shift over the course of a campaign. Right. And I haven't really seen that mechanically in a Star Trek game before. And I think Nathan Dowdell, the designer of the game, I think just did a fabulous job of kind of making the game really focused on the characters first and foremost. Because if you think about Star Trek, I mean, ultimately Star Trek is about the characters, right? It's not about the cool. It's not about the tech. It's not about ships blowing each other up, although that certainly happens. But it's ultimately you tune into the show to watch what Spock and Kirk and Picard and Riker and all the other characters are up to on a day-to-day basis, because you're inviting them into your home, right? You're watching the show and you're inviting them into your home for an hour every week, and those are characters that you want to live with, and that's what we try to do with an RPG too, right? Is you make interesting characters that you want to play for months and months and months, and hopefully play with your friends who also have interesting characters that you can play with for months and months. And ultimately, it's character focused more than anything else.
Right. I think one of the things I've noticed about playing this game in particular over the other ones that I've played is this really does feel like you're writing a script for an episode, and as you're playing the game out, it's like you're playing an episode of the show, and it's completely different. I think it's the system has done a very good job of capturing that I think the other ones didn't do. So I think you're absolutely right there. I guess what are the limitations of the license, and like what sort of coverage can the fans expect from the franchise?
So our license currently covers all of the quote unquote legacy series. So Enterprise, original series, the animated series, Next Gen, DS9, and Voyager. We have all those that we can pull from. The 10 original movies, so the original series movies and the Next Gen movies, we have access to all of those. We're also able to pull from all the different novels and all the different comic books. And we've even strategically dropped in some stuff from Star Trek Online because we've developed a really good working relationship with those folks and are working to do more with them. Just kind of in conjunction with the game and using some of their art and trading things off and stuff. So that's what our license pretty much covers right now. Obviously, we would love to add Picard and Discovery and Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks and all the other stuff that CBS is working on. We'd love to add all those. But that's just, that's a process that has to take place. A lot of negotiation because it's a licensed property, right? So we would love to add all that at some point, obviously, because those are the shows that are on the air now. And it would be fantastic to be able to tap into those fan bases because, love them or not, and I'm not going to go into whether I love them or hate them, but that's new Star Trek that's on the air, and there's a whole new generation of Star Trek fans that are being created right now by Discovery and by Picard and by Lower Decks, and there's an opportunity to pull them into an RPG, and get them playing. And that's just exciting. I'd love to figure out a way to do it. So, to be determined if we can make that happen. But in the meantime, we've got plenty of material to work on with the series that we do have access to.
Yeah, my wife is finally becoming a Star Trek fan. I got her to sit down and watch all of DS9 and all that. But what's getting her really hooked is Lower Decks. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a good show. I like it. So I'm looking forward to that. I know you guys sent out today at the time of recording a survey that references a lot of the materials that people might want to do. I don't know when that survey ends, if it's going to end before this airs or not, but I will put a link in the doobly-doo and people can check that out. I think that's a good one to give some feedback and let everybody know what they think. So,
yeah, it was just serendipitous timing that survey came out the same day that we are recording this, which is kind of neat. I believe the survey ends on October 4th. Okay. So I don't know when this is going to air, but hopefully people had an opportunity to take the week to go check it out.
Yeah, I'll try to get up before that. I can't guarantee anything, but we'll see what we can do. So this game was released in August of 2017, as you said before. It's been out for a little over 3 years. In that time, we've seen a lot of material coming out for this game. 2 adventure compilations, 3 division books, 4 quadrant books, a bunch of material for a living campaign, a second core book that isn't actually out yet, but is coming. And I love that one. And it features all of our favorite lobster-headed warriors and gold lame, the Klingons. If you guys don't get that reference, Google it. You'll get it. So what's next for Star Trek Adventures?
Let's see. The next thing coming up is the Shackleton campaign, or the Shackleton Expanse campaign setting. We announced that a couple months ago at a Day of Honor event. That was a big multi-licensor or multi-licensee event that we did with the folks at Star Trek Online and some other folks. And what that is we've taken the living campaign and we've kind of morphed it into a full-blown campaign setting where we took the living campaign that's available now and added a lot more content to it. And we're also turning the Shackleton Expanse itself into a campaign setting so that game masters can come to it either from the Klingon book or the Starfleet-oriented core rule book, and just have this full, not just a setting, but also there's a whole mini campaign, a 10-part campaign built into it that we started doing in the living campaign, but now we're able to continue in a much bigger format in a book as opposed to trying to release installments on a regular basis, which was really hard to do. I think we were more. It was a great idea, but it was more ambitious than what we were prepared for at the time.
Sure.
And I think because we wanted to do a lot more with it as a living campaign, but we just didn't. A, we didn't have the infrastructure, and B, we didn't really account for the review cycles necessary with CBS just to get things done. So that's the big thing we're working on right now is that campaign setting. And then other than that, I can't talk about what we've got coming up next. Other than to say that I've got, I just revised it this morning. My spreadsheet has, I think 41 or 42 active things in process, and we've got the release schedule pretty well nailed down for the next, I think 19 months, 20 months, something like that. So there's a long runway ahead of us And I think even the survey that came out today mentioned that, we're looking for feedback from fans to find out what we want to be working on for the next several years.
Sure.
So, if anyone's concerned about the Klingon book, killing Star Trek Adventures like a Klingon book has killed every other version of the game, it's fortunately it's not going to happen. We're going to be around for a good long time here.
So I have two follow-ups to that. The first is the Shackleton Expanse story, is that going to be something that advances the timeline? Because I know the game starts out default in 2371, right? Is this planning to advance the timeline at all, or are we going to see things that we don't normally see on film that's going to be advancing forward, or is it just kind of a loose, do your own thing?
Let's see. So the 10-part, like the epic main storyline that we started in the Living campaign. I don't want to put any spoilers in here, right. But suffice to say that the Living campaign is an epic storyline that starts in the original series era, starts in 2269, and there's some stuff that happens, and then it continues on into the next generation era in 2371. And then more stuff happens, in the TNG era. Right now, I'm still in the middle of edits on it, but what we've been really careful to do is to structure all of the adventures in such a way that they're not necessarily time dependent, right? Because we want game masters to have as many tools at their disposal as possible. So, we have a 10-part story, and we are, strongly encouraging GMs to play those in order, right? But you can insert all kinds of stuff in between them. It's not like you have to play part 5 and then immediately go to part 6. You can kind of, stretch it out for as long as you want. And if you're familiar at all with the Klingon core book that we've got coming up, one of the things I introduced into that is something called a mission brief, which is a 1-page high-level synopsis of an episode that a game master can take and spin and modify to their own campaign and go off and running with it. We're going to be packing the Shackleton Expanse book with a whole bunch of mission briefs that run the gamut from a lot of original series stuff and a lot of next gen era stuff, including some that would be set in the Dominion War. Okay. Because if you are familiar enough with the Living campaign, one of the conceits was that we had 3 ships. 3 Federation ships were assigned to the Expanse. And it just works out that all 3 of those ships that we named actually are canon ships, right? The Venture, the Bellerophon, and the Thunderchild all have things to do in canon that aren't directly related to the Shackleton Expanse, but have them going off doing different things. And so we wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity, if a game master and crew happened to be using one of those 3 canon ships, that we could drop in a mission brief that says, oh, hey, by the way, if you're playing the Bellerophon, at this start date, you should be off doing this thing. And so if you want to, build that in, here's a way to do that. Or hey, the Thunderchild showed up in Star Trek First Contact fighting the Borg. So maybe you take a break from the, Shackleton Expanse, you go defend Earth from the Borg, and then maybe you go back or something. So we're trying to build in that canon connectivity to some extent. That's pretty so cool. That game masters are aware of it. Of course, game masters are welcome to use whatever ship they want to. They don't have to use the ones that are provided, right? They can do whatever they want. Right. But ultimately, trying to make it kind of timeline agnostic, because of course, no campaign setting can ever survive contact with any number of game masters, right? Right. And so what my intention is to give all of you game masters and players as much flexibility as possible. We don't want anybody to be kind of like stuck in a specific timeline. So we're trying to keep it pretty flexible, like as far as how many of the adventures you run and how much space you fill them out. Right. Right. So the other follow up to that one was, well, first of all, I think that's really awesome. I totally agree with that mentality. The other follow-up was, you said you had about 40 plus projects. Is there any kind of like release schedule that we can expect? Like, are we looking at 1 a month, 1 every 3 months? Just a rough. Well, some of the things on the release schedule are standalone adventures, like the digital releases that we do regularly. I'm finally at a point where I have a team behind me that I'm actually is pretty stable now in terms of editors and proofreaders and layout people. I mean, it's just been a process of getting all those pieces into place. And now that I've got those pieces into place, we should be able to release one every month heading into, starting in 2021, a new standalone adventure every month, in addition to all the other, 30 odd projects that we've got going on. So
right.
There will be regular ongoing releases of digital type stuff, as well as, bigger projects. The bigger projects, obviously, those won't be every month.
Right.
Because we just don't have the resources to do everything so quickly, but we're working on it.
This game seemed to have really taken off, and I feel like at first it seemed to have caught everybody off guard and how well it was going to do. So the fact that we're getting caught up now is it's great. I think online playing has played a big piece of that. I think I've discovered a lot of people are playing on Discord or Roll20 or any of the other number of virtual tabletop platforms. And I think, obviously part of that is COVID, but some of it too is just, I think Star Trek Adventures, and going back to one of your earlier questions, what makes Star Trek Adventures different from all the other Star Trek RPGs is I think Star Trek Adventures is really the first Star Trek RPG that's been able to unintentionally take advantage of the internet, where I know that the Shield of Tomorrow folks that were doing that, they were playing the game online and on YouTube, right? And or Twitch, right. And they were hosting the game, playing the game online. And that really drew a huge audience that I'm pretty confident Modiphius wasn't expecting to have happen. Because it was just, these fans put this thing together and were playing the game, and it was amazing. And that generated a lot of interest for the game. And I think, it's just expanded from there, and we, this year we've had a couple different bundle opportunities for a mix of charity and then, being able to buy into the game. Right.
And like that last Humble bundle did really well and just brought a whole nother huge cadre of potential gamers into the game that we're trying to figure out, like, how do we best service them to give them all the opportunities to play the game. So I think we're in a great place, and certainly could do for more. And just looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah, I will say that I play currently Modiphius games online. I go through Fantasy Grounds. I'm playing Conan. I'm playing Vampire, which isn't really Modiphius, but kind of Modiphius. Star Trek, which I think is the easiest one to play online. It lends itself really well to that. And I'm working on a bunch of other games too. I play a lot of Modiphius games at the moment. So
excellent.
So there's been a lot of talk in regards to other RPGs about a greater focus on accessibility to the LGBTQ community, disabled gamers of color. Some of the upcoming products for some of these lines are taking a lot of steps to try to address these complex criticisms of role-playing games and really role-playing in general in regards to representation. So what's your take on that? And how do you feel Star Trek Adventures does in addressing these issues?
That's a great question. So I started getting more involved in Twitter, I guess 4 years ago, when I really started getting involved with the line and really trying to make an effort to not just reach out to the community, but just to get to listen and to understand what the community is saying, not just about Star Trek, but about RPGs in general. Because I know that RPGs for a long time, let's be honest, for a long time it was kind of a white guys club, right? Whether you were a gamer or actually in the industry, right? In the industry, developing games, it tended to be very much a white guys club. Right. And that's obviously a problem. For me, diversity has always been important in my life and in my professional career, and then in RPGs and gaming. And I'm happy to see that in general, the industry is making changes in a positive direction toward fixing a lot of that. There's certainly a lot of work that still needs to be done. I am fortunate, and I consider it very much a success story that the team I've been able to build for Star Trek Adventures is incredibly diverse. And I don't think I've heard anybody, it's never come up in any of the interviews I've had, and I haven't seen any chatter about it online. And I'm on a lot of the different social media channels, and I try to keep an eye out for it. And I haven't heard any complaints. And if people do have complaints, please let me know. I'm not hard to reach, so please tell me. But the team that I've developed is all over the spectrum, all the different spectrums, right? Whether it's a gender identity or sexual preferences or a religion, color. Just all the different perspectives you can think of. Sure. We are represented one way or another, and I am grateful every day that all these different people have come on board to work with me on the game. because that representation is Star Trek, right? I mean, that is IDIC at its essence, right? It's infinite diversity, infinite combinations. It's tricky though, because like on the one hand, I want to promote that as hard as possible because I know it's important for people to know that they've been represented or are being represented. But it's also important for me to preserve the privacy of the people that I work with.
Sure.
Because some of them are not out, or some of them have not, made it public where they stand on, specific areas.
Right.
But, yeah, so I just, always trying to do more for diversity to make Star Trek even more diverse. And it'll never stop. I mean, it's a lifelong goal of mine to think in those directions. And yeah, I don't know what else to say really other than just making as many strides as we can to be positive, a positive force for everyone to be involved. And hopefully we're doing well. And if not, boy, I sure want honest feedback as much as possible.
Right. I think personally, and I mean, I don't have a lot of room to speak on this, but I think that Star Trek Adventures is one of the fewer games out there that I don't really see a lot of barrier for. And I haven't heard a lot of discussion. Mm-hmm. There's some talk in the communities about some of the communities being a little more toxic, but that is something that the sure. fans have to deal with on their own. Right. And they can only do so much. People have to come to their senses.
Yeah. That toxicity is really, especially around Star Trek, is really confusing to me.
Yeah.
Because like I've been a Star Trek fan for so long, and like I know that diversity and inclusion was baked into it from the very beginning in the 60s. And I read some comments online from people that are in a very different direction. And I just don't understand what television show they were watching to have the, right. The attitudes and beliefs that they have. It's like, that's what you're saying is like, it's nowhere in Star Trek anywhere. Not like right. even the worst horrible villains are not, as virulent as some of the fans are out there. And I just, right. I don't get it, honestly. So I mean, I just try to focus on good stuff,
Right. I mean, Gene had his issues, but the setting as a whole and the things that he laid down. I mean, it is a thing I think, anyways, to aspire towards. It's one of the reasons I've always been a right. huge fan of the Star Trek, everything, the Star Trek franchise as a whole. I think it's been great. So I guess if you could work on one, let's say, dream project for the Star Trek RPG, or really Star Trek at all, what would that project mm-hmm. be? And what are the chances of anything like that actually happening?
Gosh, man, I know you asked me that to prepare for this, and I've been thinking about it because, like, I know that when we were developing the game, we were on our our private social media channel talking about the game and the rules and stuff, and we were like, oh, wouldn't it be just amazingly cool if we could do like a Borg box set with all the stuff thrown into it and just be this huge gigantic thing that you just drop on the table and it's like, there it is.
Right.
And for a while that was pie in the sky, and then the president of the company said, well, what would it take to make that happen? And we were like, okay. So then we figured it out and we did it on launch, and it's like it's just a behemoth of a thing, and it was just so cool to come out with that. But for like an actual product, and I have to think about this too from two perspectives, right? Not just as the project manager of the game, but also as a lifelong Star Trek geek and,
right.
and like a lifelong Star Trek RPGer, right? Because that's one of the perspectives I bring, is that not only am I managing this game right now, but like I'm a gamer too, and like there are certain things I want to see at the table,
sure.
just to play. Like if I wasn't working for Modiphius, I'd be like all over this game and being totally rabid about it.
Yeah.
But gosh, what would be my dream project? I always joke, those that follow me on social media, I always joke about wanting to do the Pac-Led source book. But that's not really serious. That's just me having fun.
Right.
Speaking of which, Easter egg for you. Anytime you see something Pac-Led in any part of the Star Trek Adventures game, that's all me. Whether it's a sidebar or a piece of art or something else, I drop in the Pac-Leds when I can, just because they're so hilariously fun.
Very nice.
Gosh,
I suppsuppose the easy answer is doing anything with Star Trek.
I don't want to waste a lot of time thinking about it,
right.
but I don't really have a good answer for because I mean, honestly, this job right now is the dream job. Right. I just got lucky to be in the right place at the right time to be working on this, and like I said, we even with the series that we do have access to, we've got years of content that we can still work on and develop. That all of it is. I'm just grateful to be working on it at all. Right. Maybe I'd really love to figure out a way to come up with like a. And again, this is just wish list. This isn't anything that we're actually developing. Sure. It's just me throwing ideas out there. It would be really cool if we could come up with a revised core rule book that was not just setting or series agnostic, but like was targeted at every fan and could figure out a way to make everybody happy. Right. I mean, I know that's not realistic, but like if we're talking pie in the sky here. Because I know that a lot of fans, especially, and I'm not saying this in any negative connotation because I love everybody involved in Star Trek and everybody who's a fan, but like there's a certain cadre of original series fans who are like really, really, really hardcore original series fans to the point where they don't want anything to do with the game if it doesn't look anything like the original series. Right. And I understand that, we made the conscious decision to base Star Trek Adventures with a default year of 2371, setting it squarely in the middle of next gen DS9, because that's where the most canon material is in the next gen era. Right. But to hear from fans that when they say, well, it's not TOS, so I don't even want to look at it, where I know intellectually that the entire rule system is for every Star Trek, right? You can do Enterprise, Next Gen, DS9, Voyager. You can do anything you want with it. But I don't know if it's that they just don't like the look and feel of it, or if they just can't look beyond the LCARS layout and don't see the game behind it. Right. So it'd be nice to figure out a way, like, could we do a refresh on the rule set that had a layout, that felt like Star Trek, but wasn't clearly original series, Enterprise, Next Gen, DS9, et cetera, et cetera. Right. I don't know if that's realistic, but I guess that's what's been on my mind. It would be interesting recently.
It would definitely be interesting to see what that looked like. I will say that I think of all the RPG books that I own, and I own a multitude of RPG books. In particular, Star Trek books. I think the best looking book I have ever had my hands on is the Last Unicorn Games Star Trek the Original Series book. That is what I never actually opened the book and played it, but man, that book looked so good. I think the new ones look really good. I get my fingerprints all over them because black pages, but other than that, that's my only real complaint. But man, I tell you, like for me, I think going over the years, I think my two dream books, not being a creator, but my two dream books were when I was younger. I really liked the Ships of the Line book from Last Unicorn Games, and I look forward to anything and everything Mirror Universe. I don't know. I'm obsessed with that. So that's my dream that I want you guys to come out with. When you do, we'll be all over that. So.
Yeah, and I know I talked about this on other places, but a Starship book, a dedicated Starship book, and Mirror Universe. I mean, those have been on the whiteboard, the dream whiteboard, for a long time now, and I'm sure we'll find a way to get there eventually. It's just a matter of figuring out all the different things that are in process already. Yeah, I know Steve Long did the Stardock for years, and that kept a lot of people going for Star Trek for a long time. So I know there's definitely people out there who want a dedicated ship book. The Decipher Ships book was really good, and I like everything you guys do with the ships so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing what more comes up from that. So I have one last question, and that is, who's your captain? Cisco. Benjamin Cisco, no doubt. Yep. I think Benjamin Cisco is the most fully realized captain in all of Star Trek. Partially because he's just got so much going on. He was initially resistant to the job that he was given in the pilot, and he's a single father. And he suddenly becomes this emissary to the prophets. That this whole religious angle that we'd never seen before in Star Trek, really, to the degree that we saw it in DS9, and they found a way to balance all of that throughout the entire series. And Avery Brooks, just an amazing actor, amazing director, and I just think that like Benjamin Cisco is just the most fully realized captain of all of them, and partly because DS9 gave him the opportunity to have that arc from beginning to end. There's just so much going on with that series that I think like original series in original series in Next Gen and Voyager couldn't quite do to the same extent, just because of the way the episodic structure kind of works against that to some degree. So yeah, Cisco's my captain by all means. Although I will have to admit that I have a man crush on Anson Mount. So I'm really curious to see what they do with Pike in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. It's I've looked forward to every new Star Trek show that's come out, and whether I've liked them or not, I'm looking forward to this new one coming. So I don't have anything else for you, Jim. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Oh man, I could talk all day about Star Trek or Star Trek Adventures. So I'll just try to be good though, because I don't want to spend the whole night doing this.
Sure. Yeah. We'll get you back for another show later. We'll do another episode and hit on things that we didn't touch in today. So, Jim, I really appreciate you coming on. This is the very first episode of Star Trek of STA Engage, and it's great to have you. And I really hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much to all the fans for supporting the game. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this without you. So we're going to try to keep you happy for as long as we can. So Thank you so much for all your support. Thanks for the invite. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yep. And again, you'll have all the links to the doobly down in the doobly-doo. So check those out. Check out Modiphius. And thanks. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right, guys, that's all I have. I really want to thank you for stopping by. I want to thank Jim Johnson for being here with us. It means so much to me and the guys at Continuing Missions for you all to have been a part of this, the first episode of STA Engage. There's a lot of work that goes into putting this episode out. And in the future, we're going to have so many more episodes for you that we have planned. So again, thank you all for stopping by. In the next episode, we're going to talk about getting started with your character for STA and how you can make a more memorable and engaging persona. So stay tuned next time for Where No One Has Gone Before, or another fine mess you've gotten us into. Until then, I am your host, not a real Dr. RPG, Jeff Harvey, and on behalf of myself, my guest, Jim Johnson, and everybody that works behind the scenes here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Live long and prosper.